Okay, and we are back with Barb for part 4. Last night we spoke a bit about um, your seizures and the triggers, as well as what you experienced during a seizure. Tonight I'd like to talk to you a bit about the hospital and what role it plays. How many times have you been hospitalized because of your seizures?
Probably 5 or 6 times.
Now, were those results of you having a seizure, or are you counting times that you've been in places like the epilepsy clinic for specialized treatment?
Those are just results of me having a seizure.
What were those like? What typically happened during those visits? Like, you had a seizure. That much is obvious. That's what got you there. But how did you get to the hospital?
By ambulance.
Did you call?
Every single time when those events have happened, it's been a grand mal seizure, and I've gone unconscious. And thankfully, I've been with somebody at the time. So they've called for me, and I've just woken up in the hospital.
And what treatments did you get while you were in the hospital?
Well, unfortunately, there's really not a lot that the hospital per se can do for you other than to kind of monitor you and watch your vital signs. And what they're really looking for is to make sure that you don't go into a series of seizures. 3 or more, if you have 3 or more within a certain amount of time, it's called status, epilepticus or status. So that can become very dangerous. Can even cause death. So that's kind of what is a concern. So that's kind of why they keep you there for a couple of days, just to monitor you and make sure that you're not going to go into a series of uncontrollable large grand mal seizures. Normally what they did when I was in there was just give me an IV with hydrating solutions and Ativan, which is what they put under your tongue when you have a seizure, or they can also administer it through the IV, or you can take it by mouth and swallow it. And just you take your regular medications while you're in there, and they just come in every once in a while, check on your vital signs. Your family doctor comes in and checks on you, and when they think that you're stable to go home, then they let you go. The one time that I did have a severe set of 2 or 3 grand mals in a row, I did end up in the critical care unit at the hospital here, and I woke up with all the gadgets all over me, and the monitors all around, the heart monitors and the wires, and so that was very scary. I mean, just waking up like that and not having any clue, because last thing I knew I was having a cup of tea with my girlfriend, and then I woke up and I was in the hospital bed looking around at all these blinking lights. So that's kind of it.
So, you've had seizures, obviously, that haven't placed you in the hospital. How many times have you been hurt physically as a direct result of having a seizure?
Well, it depends really on what's your definition of hurt. There's lots of bumps and bruises. And scrapes
So falling is a real concern.
Yeah, falling's a real concern. I've fallen down the stairs quite a few times in the house, and landed on the floor a couple times, but fallen out of bed and fallen out of chairs, that kind of stuff. But you bite your tongue quite often, or your lip, while you're having a tonic-clonic. I've never had any severe injuries or anything that I've required any kind of medical treatment for. So, but it just kind of goes with the territory.
How would you say that having the type of epilepsy that you have, because your seizures are what they class as uncontrolled, is that correct? So how would you say that having this type of epilepsy affects, say, your basic activities of daily living? Say from a person that doesn't have epilepsy.
Well, there's limitations as to what you can do. I mean, and then there's a lot of things that you still can do a lot of things, but then there's some things that you obviously can't do or you shouldn't do. I shouldn't cook by myself in case I had a seizure and fall into the stove or fall into a burner. So I use microwave.
But that's a very serious concern.
It is, and I'm not making light of it. I just tend to use my sense of humor a lot. I'm not supposed to bathe alone or shower alone. I'm not supposed to go out alone, like walk alone, in case something would happen. Swimming, as long as someone's with me, I can swim. Motor vehicle activities obviously are off the list. Video games, I used to enjoy playing video games a lot. I can't do that anymore because I found that they were starting to bother me. I mean, not that that's like a huge loss in my life, but it's something that, I did change.
It's more noticeable as a loss now because you can't do it.
Right.
The choice has been taken away from you.
Right. Alcohol is one thing. I mean, a lot of people like to go out on the weekends or even enjoy a glass of wine with dinner on a Friday night or whatever, and alcohol is a definite no-no with epilepsy, usually depending on your medications. Like on my medications, I can't tolerate any alcohol at all. It makes me violently sick to my stomach, so that's something that I figured out a few years ago, and I've given up, and I don't miss it at all. I'm quite happy to have given that up, but something that has changed. So I guess it does change the social kind of atmosphere of your life, I guess, in a way, because if people are doing certain social activities and you can't participate in the way they're participating, I guess it leaves you feeling a little alienated sometimes, or on the outside.
Sort of like going to an amusement park and then just spending all the time just sitting on a bench.
Right.
Yeah. What fun is that, right?
Right.
Now, you mentioned your meds. What are they? What are they supposed to do? And do they have any side effects that also affect your basic activities of daily living?
Well, I take Galantin. I take 300 milligrams in the morning. I take topiramate. I take 200 milligrams a day. And I was on oxycarbamazepine. I was taking, I think, around 1,800 milligrams a day, which is it's quite a high dose, and we just found out that it was probably a toxic dose for me. So I'm coming off of the oxycarbamazepine right now and being switched over to Vimpat. I always get the names mixed up. Vimpat, which is a new medication, fairly new medication. So I've only been on the medication switch over for 4 days now. And
how's that working for you, do you think?
I'm happy to be getting off the oxycarbamazepine. I'm thrilled about that because I knew it wasn't agreeing with me.
But
I don't think I'm too happy with the initial response to the new medication, but it is quite early in for me to make a judgment.
how early? How many days has it been?
Well, it's 4 days in.
What have you noticed since you've been on this? Has there been an increase in seizures, an increase in the severity or the types that you have?
There's been an increase in seizures for sure. I believe I've had 3 grand mal, 2 complex partials, and about 6 simple partials in the last 4 days. So that's a huge amount. That is to be expected, though, when you do decrease one med and introduce another.
You had 2 grand mals yesterday, did you not? Yeah. And today you had another one while you were doing laundry. How would you classify that one? Was that a grand mal as well, or?
I don't know what that one was. It's a new type that I've been having, and I'm not. It involves a lot of twitching and spasming and an inability to speak at the same time that's going on, and I don't have any muscle control, like I'm just limp. I can't move. I can't speak or move, but I'm not unconscious. But my limbs are twitching. So
but you remain aware. Partial. You remained aware during this seizure, or just?
Yes, I did remain aware. But I couldn't call out for assistance. I mean, in my head, I was knowing that I should call out, for assistance, but it wouldn't come. I couldn't speak. So I think it was a complex partial seizure for sure. I'm grasping at it right now, and I apologize. I can't think of the type of seizure, and there is a name for it, and it'll come to me later, where it does involve jerking. Myoclonic, that's it. Myoclonic seizures. So I'm wondering, I've never been diagnosed with that type, but it seems to fit the classic symptoms of that, so I'm wondering if I'm adapting to that type.
Well, it sounds like, in addition to being inordinately inconvenient, it sounds like depression would be something to be concerned about. Is depression something that you have with this? Do you think, like, have you experienced the classical symptoms of depression, feeling blue?
I would say yes. I've definitely gone through periods of it. I think there's times when I feel like I just want to stay locked up in the house and just kind of hide away from everything and just be in my own little bubble. I think that's probably part of depression. I know that depression, there's a very high rate of depression that goes along with epilepsy. But I also think probably that a lot of it, may tie into the side effects of the medications as well. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I know that some of the medications can really affect your moods, and a lot of them do seem to bring your moods up and down. And a lot of them make you very lethargic and very tired and groggy and sleepy. So I think probably, sorry, the lack of physical energy from the medication and the lethargy and the feeling of just wanting to sleep all the time sometimes can lead to a feeling of depression because you want to be doing something, but you just don't have the energy.
So, when you're feeling depressed, how do you cope with that depression? How do you stay positive?
Well, I think I'm a really positive person. I always look on the bright side of everything, no matter what. I mean, there's always a bright side to every situation, no matter how bad it is. I don't care what it is. And you always have to look for the good in everything, because there's always good in something, no matter what it is. And also you have to remember that no matter whatever you're going through, there's always somebody out there that has it a lot worse off than you do. So you have to be grateful for what you have and concentrate and focus on that and push yourself forward. If you don't do that, then that's when I think depression really could take a hold of you and really grab you. I motivate myself by reading, and I read a lot of I can't think how to word it. Like positivity, positive. Maybe you can help me out because I can't think right now how to word it. Positive people things, books.
Inspiration?
Thank you. I'm having a lot of trouble with my speech after the seizure, sorry. Yes, I do a lot of that. I read a lot of that, and that helps me. I listen to music. I have the most amazing fiancee in the world I'm going to marry in a few months. So, I mean, who could be happier, really? And I have a great family, and I have great friends. And my dog, my cat, So, I just focus on that and just keep moving forward and trying to solve things for myself and figuring out, okay, well, what can I do next? That didn't work, so what do we try next? That didn't work, okay, so what do we try next? There's always ways that you can make yourself feel better or make yourself feel more positive. So the last little while, that's what I've really been trying to do, is push my life into a positive direction and do positive things. I've been eating really healthy foods and taking vitamins and exercising as much as I can and going for walks as much as I can and getting fresh air. And I figure, if I can do all that stuff as much as I can, that's going to help.
Of course, you're now going for walks daily. We just completed a 4-block walk with the dog. How does it feel knowing that you're getting back outside, even if it's in a small way, under your control and under your own power? How does that make you feel?
It feels really good. It feels excellent. It feels excellent. I mean,
were there times where you actually just felt like you might as well just be a prisoner in your own home and they might as well just put bars over top of the windows and a guard on the door?
Mm-hmm.
How did you cope with that?
I don't think I did cope. I think I thought I was coping, but I think that was when I probably was depressed. I wasn't talking to people. I was keeping quite to myself. And I wasn't looking after myself in a healthy way. I wasn't taking care of myself as best as I could. And I just was kind of in a state of denial, I think, for a long time. And I think I went through a really bad phase after my husband passed away, and after my father passed away, and after I got epilepsy and lost my job, my business, and I kind of felt like everything was just falling apart slowly, one by one by one, and what was coming next, and then the accident came, and with the accident there was a big recuperation period where I did have to lay in the house for days and days and days, with 2 casts up to my knees. So I think I was kind of in a funk for a while there, and I think thankfully in the last 15 months up here mentally I've changed a lot positively and just decided that okay, I have to be positive. I have to change my way of thinking and change my way of viewing things and the way I'm doing things, and just basically turn everything around. And so that's what I've been trying to do.
Now, a week or two ago, you took your dog out for a walk at night by yourself. Was that frightening for you?
It actually was the best thing I think I've done in a long time. It was very exhilarating for me, and I mean, I used to walk the dog every day for probably a good hour before I broke my leg, and after the accident I couldn't. So me getting back into walking again, even if it's only around the block with you, now it's a big step for me, and for me to be able to do that, a walk with just her and I, it kind of felt like I'm back to where I was.
How did it feel after? Was it like a feeling like, I can't believe I just did that by myself?
Yeah.
So I likened it to when a child first learns that they can ride a bicycle without training wheels. Was that sort of like the feeling it was for you?
Mm-hmm.
Now, you mentioned before that because of your epilepsy, because you were afraid that you would have a seizure in public, that more or less forced you to decide that it might be easier to become a shut-in. Do you think that, taking the dog out by yourself might be the first step in a way of regaining at least part of that independence that you lost? Hypothetically speaking.
I think so. I mean, as long as I stay within my safety boundaries and don't go too far without you with me, where I'm not being alone, because it's not something that I should be doing by myself. My neurologist would kick me in the butt, but up here, he knows as well as I know what is the best thing for me. So yeah, it feels good.
Think there'll ever come a time when you're going to try and push those limits to see what they really are as opposed to what you think they are?
I always push my limits. I always have, and I always will. I'm stubborn. I'm probably a lot too stubborn for my own good sometimes.
Because you've always maintained that many times to be effective in life, you have to push yourself out of your comfort zone. That you can only recognize what your true limits are by going beyond the ones that you've set for yourself.
Exactly.
Do you think that this is something that you're actually going to follow with?
It most certainly is. I mean, agreeing to go back into the epilepsy clinic for reassessment and retesting. I'd known for a long time in the back of my mind that it was coming, that there wasn't going to be a choice soon, that I was going to have to do it. And I didn't want to bring it up, and my neurologist hadn't brought it up yet, but I knew it was coming, just as I knew that eventually I was going to have surgery. But I hadn't accepted it here or here. I mean, it was floating around. But making the decisions that I made, finally, to say, you know, when I went up there last week, to say, you know what, yeah, I'm game. I'll go in the clinic, we'll do retesting, and I think you're right. Actually, I know you're right. Surgery, you know, is going to be the option that I'm going to end up having to go with, more than likely. You know, not more than likely, but I mean, you can only kid yourself for so long, so yeah, that's the whole comfort zone thing. So I think lately I've been trying to kind of push myself a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more, because I have to prepare myself. I have to be strong here as well as in my body. I'd always told myself and everybody that I would never do the surgery, and was very adamant about it. Very adamant.
Was that mostly because, or do you think that was partially because they wanted you to have the surgery and you hadn't actually decided whether or not you wanted to or not, so naturally you were just digging in your heels and saying, no, I'm not doing this?
There was a lot of fear from people. A lot of people had not objections to it, like you shouldn't do it because, but just emotional objections to it. Because of lack of education about the actual surgery. I mean, you talk about having brain surgery for epilepsy, and people sometimes tend to think, well, they're taking a quarter of your brain out.
And
you know
I'm sure that we both know people that if they took a quarter of their brain out, nobody would be able to tell the difference.
Yeah.
So we'll end this segment on that note, and in the next segment we're going to talk about the epilepsy clinic. Thanks, Barb.